Welcome back to the deep dive. We are taking the stack of sources you provided and synthesizing them into a clear picture of some, well, genuinely astonishing geopolitical analysis. Today, we're wading into a scenario that began with an inflammatory political request, but very quickly became the subject of some detailed, and I have to say, ruthless military planning.
It did. We're talking about the hypothetical U.S. military acquisition of Greenland.
Right.
It sounds like a bad novel, but this is real expert assessment we're looking at. It all followed former U.S. President Donald Trump's public interest in Greenland.
Which included that request for Denmark and Greenland, country of what, 56,000 feet?
56,000.
To meet at the level of foreign ministers.
Yeah.
And from there, security analysts just took the idea and ran with it.
They really did.
Okay, let's unpack this immediately. Because the sources we have, they don't treat this as some diplomatic fantasy.
No, not at all.
They treat it as a potential, very swift military operation. So our mission today is to dive deep into those analyses, both the ones who saw it as, frankly, alarmingly easy, and those who saw fatal political flaws.
And the initial shock factor, which really sets the stage for everything else, is that several security experts assessed that taking Greenland would be a matter of hours.
Wow.
And they immediately dubbed the concept a Crimea 2.0.
Right.
So we're going to unpack the tactical advantages, the specific steps proposed, and that crucial conflict in motivation. Was this security, or was it purely about economics?
Let's get into it.
When analysts like the military expert Gustav Gressel looked at the map, the defense setup, the conclusion was stark.
He was pretty blunt, wasn't he?
Very blunt.
Huh?
Gressel stated that taking Greenland would be, and I'm quoting, quite easy at present. The whole feasibility just hinged on this overwhelming asymmetry of forces.
And that asymmetry is just staggering, because the defense on the ground is so thin. He points out the presence of weak Danish forces and just some local police.
That's it.
We are talking about a massive landmass defended by a tiny, scattered presence. It's one of the world's most powerful militaries against an almost non-existent opponent.
And what's fascinating here is how the island's unique geography just fundamentally favors a rapid external action.
Right.
The sources detail that the vast majority of Greenland's population and infrastructure, all the towns, are located right on the coast.
Which leaves them completely exposed.
Completely exposed to sea and air-based assault. And crucially, there's no real interior to hide in.
Because it's an ice sheet.
Exactly. The central landmass is just this massive ice sheet. So the territory is vast, but it's so inhospitable that the analysts conclude there is, quote, hardly any refuge or hiding place for defenders.
So you can't retreat inland. You can't stage some kind of sustained insurgency or resistance.
No, resupply, even survival would be nearly impossible.
And this leads directly to the U.S. strategic advantage.
Two massive assets at play. First, the obvious one, air superiority. They could seize the air domain instantly.
And the second asset is one that's already there, the Thule Air Base.
Yes, a massive U.S. installation in the north of the island.
And according to the sources, Thule's existence just fundamentally complicates Denmark's ability to send any meaningful reinforcements.
It cuts them off before they can even start. Thule acts as a forward operating barrier, a huge staging ground already in place, capable of isolating the south before the Danish fleet could even cross the North Atlantic.
That existing presence is what speeds up the clock, isn't it?
It's everything. If Denmark has to deploy forces across an ocean and the U.S. already has a fortified, fully operational airbase on the territory, well, the battle for control is essentially over before it starts.
And this is where the analysis takes a deeply unsettling turn. The sources, they draw on assessments noted by a German newspaper, and they detail this extreme view on how Denmark's resistance would be handled.
It's chilling.
The analysis suggests the small Danish military presence would be eliminated immediately from the air.
But if they resisted?
Right, if those forces actually fought back. The grim conclusion offered was that they'd have the opportunity to take another American with them to their death, and in doing so, have the option to die honorably.
That detail it just strips away all diplomatic pretense. It reduces the entire situation to pure military math.
Yeah.
It underscores this belief that cooperation would be the only rational choice for Denmark, because any resistance would be met with an immediate, lethal, and totally disproportionate response.
A zero-sum calculation offered by the planners. It speaks volumes about the ruthlessness. They're basically saying, don't resist, it's futile, and we're prepared for immediate, violent escalation.
Which is how you present a fait accompli to the world.
Okay, so if the feasibility is terrifyingly high, Let's pivot to the sources that detail exactly how this would be executed. This isn't just a strategic assessment. We have a specific tactical blueprint.
And it comes from the chief instructor and researcher of the National Defense Academy of the Armed Forces of Austria. So this emphasizes the seriousness of the analysis.
It's a plan for maximum speed.
Exactly. Designed to secure control and present a new reality to NATO and the UN before any meaningful political opposition could even get organized.
So, step one, according to this analysis.
A low-profile, rapid infiltration. The plan involves warships disembarking small groups of Marines and police by helicopter.
Okay, wait. Small groups is critical there, not a massive landing.
Right. It's a targeted Special Forces-style entry to avoid the optics of a full-scale invasion, but also to maximize mobility and surprise.
But the inclusion of police alongside Marines,
Mm-hmm.
that's a detail that jumps out. Why police?
Well, that's a critical detail, isn't it? The Marines secure the territory, sure, but the police suggest the immediate establishment of civic control.
So neutralizing local government structures.
Instantly. They're prepared for immediate martial law and administration.
Which raises the question of who they'd be working with on the ground, but we'll get to that.
We will. So step 2 is securing the key targets. These groups would seize strategic points, specifically naming the capital Nuuk, as well as the essential runways outside of Thule.
Control the runways, you control access to the island for everybody else.
Precisely.
And that's what makes the time frame so shocking. You connect the dots, you've got air superiority from Thule, you've got small, rapid marine groups seizing choke points like Nuuk, and the few vital runways.
It's a concentrated, surgical approach.
And that's exactly how analysts conclude the seizure and control would be achieved in a matter of hours. It's a textbook lightning operation designed to preempt any international reaction.
The logic is clear. Politically, you need the capital Nuuk to claim control. Logistically, you need the runways to prevent Denmark from bringing in their own reinforcements. You make the island indefensible from the outside.
Which leads us straight into the political framing. Because that name, Crimea 2.0, it's not just about the swift military move, is it?
No, it's about how the political fallout would be managed afterward. It's a template for transforming an invasion into a political restructuring.
So for anyone who needs a quick refresher on Crimea,
The operation was characterized by rapid deployment of unmarked troops, the little green men who secured key infrastructure. Then immediately came the political structuring, a referendum, and leveraging local collaborators to quickly establish a new administration.
presenting the world with a permanent new reality.
Exactly. And the sources predict the U.S. administration would handle the fallout in a comparable fashion. It's about offering a coercive choice to the losing party.
So what's the predicted move?
The maneuver is this. If the Danish government cooperated after the seizure, they would be offered the option of, well, continued U.S. control or some kind of defined subservient relationship with the U.S.
Which allows the U.S. to avoid the messy optics of a complete hostile annexation.
Instead, you frame the outcome as a forced but negotiated shift in geopolitical administration. The cooperation is offered not as a genuine concession, but as a way to let Denmark save face.
The political equivalent to the military is offered to die honorably.
A very good way to put it. And here is what's perhaps the most astonishing political claim in the entire analysis. The highly specific belief that experts think the U.S. already have collaborators for a transitional government within Greenland.
Wow. Okay, that changes everything.
It does. It suggests the military action would be immediately followed by a prepared internal political coup to legitimize the whole thing.
That moves it from an improvised snatch and grab to a planned, multi-layered operation.
If true, it implies political groundwork was laid long before the idea ever became public, identifying Greenlandic figures prepared to govern under a U.S. mandate.
So if we connect all this to the bigger picture, analysts cite a deeper motivation.
A highly ambitious one. The analysis suggests that Trump's underlying drive was to leave his mark on American history through territorial expansion.
And they draw a direct parallel.
A direct parallel with his Russian counterpart. The idea being that great leaders secure their legacy through land acquisition, the Louisiana Purchase, or, hypothetically, the acquisition of Greenland.
That military assessment is compelling in its feasibility, I have to say, but we have to introduce the crucial countertension.
We do.
Because our sources confirm that other experts do not see this operation as so clear-cut.
Right, and this is the essential tension. Security expert Nico Lange, for example, he suggests the Americans would never use a military route.
So what would they do instead?
He argues they'd pursue a maximum pressure policy. that the preferred and vastly less costly path would be finding a clean legal structure to annex Greenland.
Like a long-term lease or a direct purchase negotiation.
However aggressive that negotiation might be, yes.
And for our listeners, maximum pressure policy, what does that actually mean here?
It's essentially economic and diplomatic warfare. So, leveraging every financial and trade connection, potentially threatening tariffs, withdrawing investment, using diplomatic tools to squeeze Denmark into a deal.
Achieving the same outcome without firing a shot.
And that pressure policy would be driven primarily by U.S. domestic political constraints.
Right.
At the time this was all being discussed, Trump was reportedly facing a pretty challenging foreign policy environment with relatively little room to maneuver.
And an overt, hostile takeover of a NATO ally.
Would create an immediate, massive political firestorm.
Compounded by the fact that, as the sources note, the Republican Party would be fearing the immediate elections. The cost would be total domestic chaos.
So the argument is, while the military operation is tactically easy, the political fallout invading a NATO founder and a Democratic ally would be catastrophic. It would just outweigh any possible benefit.
Which raises an important question. Why the interest in the first place if the political cost is so high? And here we see a clear contradiction in the motives.
A very clear one. The official U.S. stance cited was national security. Specifically that Greenland was wanted to defend against Chinese and Russian ships near the coast.
That's the classic geopolitical justification. You frame it as a defensive measure against rival powers encroaching on the strategic Arctic space.
And we can't forget the context. Greenland sits on potential sea lanes, and China and Russia have significantly increased their Arctic presence.
But the experts consulted offer a different interpretation.
A very different one. They believe the U.S. interest is purely economic.
And they point to the, what was the phrase? Quite interesting resources to exploit in the area.
We are talking about vast, untapped mineral wealth, particularly rare earth elements.
The rare earth elements are critical. I mean, essential for advanced military tech, consumer electronics, renewable energy.
And China currently dominates the global supply of these resources.
So securing a large independent supply chain in Greenland becomes a massive strategic and economic priority for the U.S.
And therefore, the conflict of motive is crucial. If the motivation is purely economic gain, then a maximum pressure policy aimed at securing mining and exploration rights is a much smarter, more cost-effective, and politically viable solution than a military invasion.
So the sources indicate the security narrative was likely just a cover.
Likely used to make the audacious demand palatable to an international community that is already nervous about competition in the Arctic.
So as we wrap up this deep dive, we're left with this core tension. We have a highly detailed military analysis suggesting a rapid, overwhelming takeover of Greenland is tactically possible in a matter of hours.
And that contrasts sharply with the political analysis, which suggests that legal or economic pressure is far more likely, given the enormous domestic and international constraints that an invasion of a NATO ally would trigger.
The analysis forces you to consider the sheer level of military detail that went into assessing the logistics of invading a peaceful ally.
It really does. It forces you to confront the idea that territorial expansion is viewed by some leaders as a necessary measure to leave his mark on American history, drawing parallels to the most aggressive geopolitical moves of rivals.
And as you reflect on this bizarre scenario, consider the ultimate difference. Was the stated national security motivation the fear of Chinese and Russian ships? The genuine driver? Or was it the underlying economic interests, those strategic resources like rare earth elements, that truly spurred this audacious geopolitical proposal?
Thank you for diving deep with us. We'll see you next time.